Slamming onto your screens, this is GI Joburg, episode 299. My name is Stephen, and I'm not alone. I brought with me my longest, oldest friend. Hello, Rob. Long, old friend.
Oh, hey, I'm long and old. It's me, Rob.
Yeah.
And you're my oldest, biggest friend, I guess.
Biggest. Hey.
Hey.
This shrimpy dude put me on the Springboks. We are one man
Area's
short.
friend, then.
We're one man short on this podcast. Paul is currently in the throes of buying his first house, which is a stressful enough thing to anyone, but even more so if you're a freelancer, because the whole time you're thinking, how the hell did I just con the bank into giving me that much money? I'm not employed by anyone. So yes, he's walking on eggshells. He's shifting things around, and he can't be with
I
us
imagine it's
on
a
this-
very stressful period. Like he just wants to get it done, get it finished, and then he can relax and get ready for Comic-Con Africa.
True. Are you excited, Rob? That's coming up on the calendar pretty soon.
I'm very excited. It looks like it'll be a very fun event. I'm excited to go to Joburg to see Paul. He's also, I think I'll probably get involved with his other project, Gunfly SA, and hopefully join a build meet or build force evening or something.
When
That's
was the last
quite
time you
fun.
built some Gundam, Robbie?
I bought some, well, when Paul was down here, actually, I bought a couple of SD Gundam. They're little like chibi Gundam. They're very easy to build. You just chop them off the thing, you tuk, and they little cute dudes. I think I got a horse or a dragon or something and like a dude to ride on it.
Oh, cool. A Gundam
Yeah.
dragon? Bizarre.
Apparently. It's from one of the Gundam series.
Does it motivate you to watch any more anime? Or you're like, nah, I'm okay. I like toys.
I think I will eventually get around to watching more Gundam. I mean, I did watch a very good one called Hell's Paradise, which ends on a big cliffhanger, and I'm like, oh, I need to keep watching. Thankfully, the manga is finished. So I can read it and finish it, so I'm not sitting and waiting.
Is that more your speed, reading rather than watching the toon?
I would rather watch it because I think, especially this sort of series, it's the motion and the movement that's interesting and makes, because it's these powerful characters like Ninja and other
they
things.
transferred into making the suits CG to assist with the animation? Or
I
they
think
still
some
do
of
it
the series do use CG, but very either sparingly or they use it well enough that you don't notice so much of the CG. I know some of the series have done that. I believe they have Paul, if he was here, be able to tell us more. But CG still doesn't look good. Like it's not at that level where it can compete.
It's not seamless. The 3D model doesn't sell like the cell shaded.
It really doesn't look as well as good. So I'm glad at least anime, the Japanese are keeping the 2D animation alive.
Well, I am getting flashbacks of GI Joe Sigma 6 and the Transformers series of the time, like Energon and whatnot, because all the kind of vehicle modes and the robot modes in Transformers were 3D models. Those were Studio Gonzo, was it? Anyway, Paul says he might actually join us, so surprise. But let's do a shout out to the guys in the chats.
Hell yeah.
It's Christoph, it's Spoon Killer, it's Brick Fiction, Bob Squad, Fred Woodworth.
Outback
Haven't
Stew.
seen much of you, Fred. Peter Moline is in the chats. Yeah, we got Outback Stew. We got Droz. Christoph is in. He's in Facebook and in YouTube. This man's everywhere. Facebook user. I possibly have a sneaking suspicion who that is, but drop your name if you want to be known. We'll say hi. And Emmanuel, hello. So if my setting looks a little bit strange and haphazard, this sort of ramshackle shelf of GI Joe stuff behind me, it's because I am now in my garage. My computer is perched in the boot of my car, or the trunk, if you prefer.
Wow.
Because my mother-in-law is visiting. And she, thanks a lot, Rob. Hey, at least I got maggots up there. That's a cool crown above my head. But my mother-in-law is here. She's using the spare room / study, so I am in here with you fine folk, and I couldn't be happier. In fact, my collection has a bit more room to breathe. But you know who else has some breathing room at long last? Paul. Hello, birdie. Oh, too soon. Too soon. He shouldn't. He shouldn't have made his camera live. Anyways, the beauties of podcasting. He can add himself when he's ready. We're going to talk reproduction toys in this episode, and that's encompassing the gamut of repro labels, and then repro parts, and then ultimately reproduction figures, or bootleg figures, if you were, which are getting better and better and better. However, they are still stealing an IP without permission, which
Could be
is the very, very definition of stealing. So we are going to get into the nuts and bolts, the good, the bad, the ugly of this trend, something that like is enormous in the Transformers world, is also similarly enormous in the Star Wars world, and is now starting to really gain momentum in the GI Joe world, thanks to third-party producers like Black Major, thanks to the Toy Hacks crowd with their label sheets, thanks to a bag of repro parts that I recently got. So I've got some first-hand knowledge of how these things stack up against the originals.
So, for those who don't understand repro, what does repro mean? What does that mean?
Hello, Paul. He's back. Now this time prepared.
Hey.
I was about to give the definition of reproduction parts, but we'll take a quick side track.
Let's say hey to
Check
Paul.
in with Mr. Deadly Pencils. How are you on this fine evening, sir?
I am good. Load shedding
Hell
just
yeah.
kicked in.
Nice.
Around in the
good.
door.
Sorry, I didn't want to mention load shedding, and it's actually been a nice day. It's been cool. Also, I know this is all about repro parts, but I suspect we will be talking some comics at some point.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
I didn't mention the
hitting
agenda
repro first.
We're hitting repro first. But now that you are here, we have a trio, and trios are good for one thing, and that's breaking a deadlock. We have we have a little bit of a YouTube poll and Facebook poll and Twitter poll, 3 polls that we opened this last week on the subject of the demon, Destro's Demon. Do you know it?
Oh god,
tank.
yes.
Weird tank, black tank that sort of raises up. It's very
gorgeous gold parts. Yum yum.
Very wide and not very deep. Like kind of like me.
Not as hairy though.
Not really. Not as demonic. Anyway, the tank has a bit of a controversy in that you have several options as to where you want to place your labels. There's a Destro sort of faction insignia marking, and then there's the actual kind of demon markings, the sort of the unique mascot, if you would call it that, of the vehicle, which is a kind of a dragon, a red coiled dragon. I'm going to get all 3D Joes up on the screen so you guys can get a grip on the controversy as it stands. So we have the box art, and the labels are placed on the upper surface of the tank. We also have the box back, and the labels are placed also, once again, on the upper surface of the tank.
Interesting. So the artwork that they produced, as well as the pictures they took of the toys, match up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then we get a little bit further down, and we see that in the blueprints. Oh, what do you fellas see?
Uh-oh. They suggest you place it at the bottom. Oh, no.
Somebody got fired at Hasbro that day.
Well, the controversy has reigned to the extent that on 3djoes.com, everyone's sort of Bible for getting the best images of these vehicles. We've got the gorgeous Chad Hukal pictures with the stickers on the bottom surface.
As per the manual.
We've got the 3D spin pictures with kind of a mishmash. Some on the top,
as per the manual.
As per the manual. Right. So my question to you, gents, which is your preference?
Whew, it's tough. I think I'd probably go with the artwork. I mean, those guys knocked it out of the park. I mean, the packaging itself shows you kind of like a better view of what the thing looks like. I think the the blueprints just kind of like say, put it over here.
I
take 2 out of 3. 66% agreement over
the problem, of course, though, is you've got either you like having the giant Destro symbol on the sort of the transparent red piece, the driver's kind of, I don't know, viewport, or that seems like a bit of a visual interruption. Paul, what would you say?
I like it on the top. Everything about it being on the bottom makes a whole lot of sense, but I just like it on the top. It looks cool.
Yeah,
like I know why it's like that on the artwork.
It's just brought up. Yeah, on the artwork it makes sense because you can see it. While having a position at the bottom, it's not as visible. But obviously, the way that the tank kind of pushes up, it does become more visible at the bottom. Or it actually makes no real difference
before it drives over you. Yeah, you could be like, oh,
exactly.
it's Destro.
Like, oh, it's Destro.
Yeah, from the person playing with the toy's perspective, you see it better at the top. But if you were to put yourself in the POV of troops trying to defeat this menacing thing, you're going to see it more prominently at the bottom. The tail of the tape, the poll, was pretty tight. You guys are both voting for the upper surfaces. Well, it makes me wish you kind of weighed in on all of our platforms.
I did weigh in.
Oh, you did? Okay, well, it was a narrow contest. But anyone want to guess which won out in the end on all 3 platforms?
I feel like the bottom did.
Yeah, I'm going to say bottom because people don't want that sticker on the see-through surface.
Because we're grown-ups now. We can't have stickers on our canopies.
Exactly.
Correct, Amondo. Bottom won out. 52% of Twitter users or X users.
Tight.
That is tight. 55% of YouTube pollers. And then on Facebook, it was 8 in favor of the lower and 3 in favor of the upper. So fairly tight all around.
Well, as Spoonkiller says, the guy making the manual was worried about function, while the cover art was all about branding. You can kind of see people arguing it from both points of view. Like there's a reason for it to be on the top or the bottom. It's just interesting that people really are split on this, it seems.
Now, the reason I most specifically raise this and now is the fact that I just got a second demon. This one's destined for you, Paul. And that means I have a demon with the stickers on the bottom and a demon with the stickers on the top. I'm not going to tell you which one is which because I'm kind of now in favor of having the stickers on the bottom. I like having the uninterrupted view plate. So the one I have in Cape Town has them on the top.
Wow.
And you say you like that.
I like that.
Well, now I'm in 2 minds. Let's see how this story unfolds when I actually have them both in hand. And I'm like, okay, you can go to Paul. You can go to Paul.
I just think when I'm older, it's going to be so much nicer because I'm going to be like, what's that vehicle called again? Oh, it's a demon. Yeah. I don't have to bend over to look underneath.
Mate, it doesn't actually say demon anywhere. I'll have you know.
It says Destro.
Yeah, but he'll remember.
Oh, it's the Destro. Oh, yeah.
That's what I'll remember. I'll get it wrong. And then Steve will just know and he'll phone me and he'll be like, it's the demon, you idiot.
My know-it-all gear is tingling. Guys, let's talk repro. Rob, you were asking me the definition of reproduction.
Yeah, what is repro?
It's a third party producing pass-off toys. They could pass off as official GI Joe stuff.
Not to be confused with this that's produced by a first party that could be considered a pass-off toy.
Yeah. I mean, I'm using the term passing off. It's more of a legal term than anything else, but it could fool a consumer into thinking it's the real thing.
But it's not just entire toys. It also encompasses pieces of toys like accessories and parts,
which is perhaps the most insidious part of the repro debate, because it can fool you even more that you've got the whole thing, which is majority first party official release, but then the tiniest little sliver of plastic, which increases the value of that toy by making it complete, happens to be reproduction. And that is a problem if you are looking at these things as a commodity, as something that has value and should be traded for value, that you can get 10 times the price for a worms that has his antenna
that are complete
than a worms without an antenna. So I received the most minuscule of parcels in the mail that I've ever received, of reproduction parts.
Did you get a small package?
A tiny package, tiny. They are. I'll bring up some images for reference. They are a Outback lamp. I mean, that just, it was a lovely idea, but perhaps given the longevity of the line, they should have realized, hang on, this thing will be lost in the gardens of the world because it is small, it is green, and it attaches to a figure that is going to see outdoor use. I mean, it's kind of baked into the name.
And it can't fit in his hands.
Yes.
Well, I can't get it to fit in his hands.
Maybe back in 1987, when the plastic was fresh, if you forced it in once, you got away with it, and thus his thumb was always kind of wide enough to accept it. But yeah, nowadays, forget about it. And
Outback
I must
doesn't have
say,
a small package.
I'm very happy with Outback's girthy bent member. Yeah. It's not quite a color match, but it's good enough, and it fits beautifully. I don't feel like the peg is too tight that it's going to snap if I twist it off awkwardly, but I also feel like it's not going to slide out. So this guy has made a very well machined part. I think it's a resin cast, but either way, it's got that glossy, hardy look to it, which gorgeous. Next part. Not that. That was a reproduction figures, actually. I got a reproduction lenticular for my building, Bat Army. The reproduction is on the right, correct. The original is on the left. The reproduction has made the colors more vivid. Maybe it's just a case of the original fading over time, if that's possible.
That's probably what it is, though.
Is the texture for the lenticular the same? Because I imagine that the because I thought maybe the one on the right had a high fidelity, like they had smaller slivers,
smaller ridges.
Yeah.
I'm running my thumb over them each, and no, it seems like the same. Yeah, it's just as fine and looks more vivid in the reproduction. I mean, I hate to say it, like the original is great, but like if you want that part to really pop, stand out, and make a statement, yep, you can't do better than having the reproduction. It's done a very good job and made my bats look handsome again, and it's also got a nice smooth, glossy sort of backing to it, so it's quite a hard piece. It doesn't feel like it's going to curl, and it also then kind of, you can stick it in. You use your own adhesive, so you have the choice of either double-sided tape, or I used a kind of a craft glue that dries clear, just a little bit to affix it.
Like a Gorilla Glue kind of thing, or what's that?
Elmer's glue is the
Elmer's
name?
glue is the. Oh, so you used Elmer's, okay? Because that's one the internationals know. Yeah,
exactly. Well, it's as
well, we have Fonal and Brett.
I have also on occasion used Uhu, which is the German sort of.
Yeah, Uhu is also very good, or Uhu, or whatever.
Once again, great work.
Zach glued stick.
Like, we're going to debate the sort of the morality of this, I guess, a little bit. But I just want to say, as a kind of an opening statement, that the stuff is approaching a standard of quality that is, it's almost better than original, if I may say.
Well, also, I just want to comment on that lenticular. I've got a feeling that the actual, like you said, it's possible that the original faded. I'm not like against that, but it's also highly likely that the saturation and the values of the new one are just pumped out more. Yeah, and also printing is more vivid today. It is better than it was back then. They didn't screen print those old ones. They used I don't want to call it digital print, but they used the printing machine for that. You know, the new ones could have been just much higher quality printer. So it gets more vivid color. You know? But it looks great. I think they look amazing.
A rare case of things being better in the future, as opposed to them being
Wow.
better in 1986. Yeah. Let's talk about the plastic of a third-party figurine, because they, like, if you can recall early Black Major, other third-party bootleg toys, they were pretty janky. But flick forward to the now, and I'm finding them getting better and better. Here we have a Cobra Trooper, which was gifted to me by you, Paul. Because, of course, I've never bought from Black Mage myself. I'll swear that in court.
Technically, neither have I.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So this is via someone else. Okay.
Through a middleman.
Oh, very good. Okay. So this figure, it's gorgeous. The rivets are correct for original GI Joe. They're not reversed. So he's already done away with that kind of signifier of a bootleg. The colors are great. I mean, there's a little bit of paint futz on his mask, but it's giving us a Cobra Trooper with wonderful red accents. You know, the balaclava or the mask, the kerchief, whatever you want to call it, over his mouth and nose is picked out in red, as we see it represented so many times in media. He feels good in hand. He feels better than Hasbro's recent offerings. Closer to the original in every way. I mean, there is a slight, almost touch test that you could administer, and you'd probably still always, if you know Joe, you'd always pick the original over this. But, I mean, if I'm, to be honest, original Cobra Troopers also had a kind of almost a lightness to them, a kind of a clicky-clacky. You know, as G.I. Joe became more refined in the later 80s, or the mid-80s, G.I. Joe kind of carved out its niches, very high-quality, hard plastic. But those 82, 83 guys and this bootleg are on par with each other. So that's the figure dimension. Now here we get into where things get really controversial. Worms and his antenna. Now this is a well-molded piece from my third-party caster. It doesn't have the same flex as the original. And it's also not the same color as the helmet, which I believe the original should have. But it fits perfectly and allows me to own and complete a figure, not have a gaping hole in the side of his head that I otherwise never would. I could never possibly prioritize this little piece just for my purposes. I like to play with my toys. I'm not a completionist by any stretch. I don't have an extremely well-curated collection. This fulfills my need to just look at that figure without thinking he's lacking something. And certainly beats bending a piece of wire and shoving it in there. But this, my friends, is a perfect example of something that will possibly, later down the line, fool someone into believing this figure is complete. And into this category, I lump heavy metal mics and hard top mics. Anytime you've got a tiny little sliver of plastic. And I mean, even the value of these repro parts themselves, I felt quite absurd, just to fill you guys in, because I don't shy away from the numbers on this show. You know me. It was 1,200 Rand for a few shavings of plastic. So it was I bought 2 lenticular stickers. I bought this antenna. I bought Outback's lamp. I bought a Sector Viper dome, because my original, I can almost remember, I can picture the day it went missing. It was in a sort of a porta pool. I played with the figure in it, left the porta pool, and I'm pretty sure I left a little piece of clear plastic behind, and the friend's mother must have just seen that and been like, oh, it's a piece of crap. Maybe the top of a, I don't know, sunblock
Juice
bottle or something. Yeah, juice bottle, that's it, pop top. Anyway, and the last thing was a barbecue nozzle. This little hose, which I seldom see being sold as in parts lots. So I went to Repro, and that came out the best, actually. Color matching, texture, just the smoothness of the molding, perfection in every way. But yeah, all those teeny tiny little parts, I felt quite foolish in these cash-strapped times with this like almost 70 or 80 US dollar value with shipping included. And it's like, it all fits in the palm of my hand. However, if they were original, it'd probably be 3 or 4 or 5 times that.
5 times that, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
That
and value.
And also, like, you know, you're not in the market for any new Joes, so to speak. You know, you're not like, you know, you've said it a few times where you feel your collection is pretty complete. So you're not like sitting there going, oh, am I going to use 80 Rand to buy a new GI Joe toy? So that kind of is just bringing your other Joe toys back to life, kind of thing. So,
well, I laid out the pros and cons in, I suppose,
of course you did.
some bullet points. In the pros side of things, cost, obviously. You're not laying out hundreds of dollars for a part. You're laying out $16. The guy's making his end because these things are boutique and made to order almost. But still, it's a fly speck on what you would pay if you finding the original. And availability is another pro, because you can go to a one-stop shop, a repro guy who does a whole plethora of parts. You can find, Rob, I know you're looking for a scarlet crotch. He's got a scarlet crotch.
Aren't we all?
There you go.
He's got the lenticulars. He's got a variety of things using different means of construction. He's got rubberized goods. He's got resin casts. He's got paperwork. He's got repro labels. So if you want to get the mail away Duke sticker, the stars and stripes, you can get there.
Cool.
So it's all there. You don't have to wait for these parts to become available in the aftermarket and buy them piecemeal and pay shipping on each one you find. I mean, it's ironic that the week I got my barbecue nozzle, and you know, I say I never see these things pop up, I saw one, an original from a seller for $10, but still, like, then the additional postage on that would just add up to it not being as worth it as getting the fake Rooney, and I'll be none the wiser. I mean, I will be, but it looks good. Then on the con side of things, guys, uncertainty. You don't know what you're getting. It might crumble after a week. You know, you need to vet these guys.
The quality of the pieces, yeah.
Use someone highly respected, or not respected, that's the wrong word. Use someone that's been vetted by other users, someone you trust. The potential for fraud later down the line is the other massive drawback to the market being flooded with these repro parts. I mean, Star Wars has been dealing with it for a long time now, because those figures are, the value is that much greater than GI Joe. But GI Joe is approaching that kind of ballpark. And these repro parts completing hard to find figures, you might know what you've got. But guys, our time on this mortal coil is obviously limited. We don't know the future of our collections and how they may trade hands in the future. And I mean, unless you somehow mark these in a way that is clear to everyone, the likelihood of them being passed for original is there. And then the third and final trump card, I suppose, and this came down to a not quite heated, but like a little bit of a a Facebook exchange between myself and a former Hasbro employee. And I said, like, I hope Black Major is able to remain unlitigated for a while, because I would really hate for these beautiful designs of his to go away. And he was like, no, it's still theft. You know, intellectual property theft is still theft. This guy needs to be sent a cease and desist order by Hasbro and shut down. So he was laying down the law, and I had to agree with him at the time. You're right, sir. That is absolutely correct.
The Ranger are upon you.
For whatever reason, Hasbro hasn't shut this guy down, and we're all kind of we're all enjoying the fruits of his ill labors.
Maybe Hasbro should stop fucking around and release replacement parts for the vintage figures.
But
they won't.
What's the incentive in that? You see, what guys like this are doing, it's not affecting the current bottom line for Hasbro.
Exactly.
It's basically catering to a
niche market,
a market that doesn't exist for them to take advantage of anymore. Exactly. Yes, they have made a couple of vintage figures, remade them.
Yeah,
but
you can call them that.
You know, that they've kind of did that, but it's not to the degree that that someone else reproducing these pieces would affect their actual bottom line currently. Like these are toys from decades ago. You know, it's not toys that are coming out right now where like someone is taking, say, I don't know, the HasLab Sky Striker and going, oh, you know, here are our versions of that. Well, that's a bad example because that was a Kickstarter thing. Rather, a classified figure, you know, like a classified spirit, like, oh, no one can get it because we only made it available at Target or whatever. But now there's this guy selling knockoff spirits. You know, I think if someone was doing something like that, that would definitely affect their bottom line.
They are. I want to bring it to everyone's attention that Regal Cobra Commander, or Supreme Snake, whatever, the black classified Cobra Commander.
Overpriced Cobra Commander.
Overpriced Cobra Commander is currently being produced knockoff style and is fairly close to the original. The original is quite garish to begin with. The knockoff is slightly more so. Some paint apps are different. The reds are slightly different. I think
some factory in China was like, hold my beer.
Absolutely. I think they just did an overrun in that factory. And that's how we're getting there, because I don't have one in hand. I can only go off the hearsay on the internet. But apparently the plastic is possible. It's not like this one's suddenly like made of rubber. It's like, pew.
Well, then those guys are definitely are open to litigation from Hasbro. I mean, they are technically stealing money from Hasbro, where people should be buying the original version of that figure. People are now have the option to buy this knockoff version of the figure.
As Jaws reminds us, it is the extremely exclusive Cobra Commander. So if you are hurting for a Cobra Commander in black,
for sure, but whether it's exclusive or not, it's irrelevant. It is something that's currently being produced by the company.
I don't think they're currently pressing them anymore.
Yeah, but it's I get where
it's part of the current line. You know, it's part. You know, it also hurts later on. You know, like if these knockoffs become more popular, then they can go ahead and reproduce other characters from the line, and then going forward, people will be less likely to necessarily pay that extra money for those exclusive figures, because they'll just wait for the knockoffs to come around, because they would, you know, obviously expect that to happen at some point. I think in that way that they would be stealing from Hasbro.
So I want to weigh in on this quite a bit, because I have some thoughts. Firstly, I think it's great that the Hasbro dude is standing, that the ex-Hasbro employee is standing up for the IP that he worked for, a company that he worked for's IP. I think that's a very noble thing, because that shows loyalty to the brand and all that stuff. And you know, that's a good thing. But in the case of Black Mages, repros and their repro figures, if Hasbro, like, I get where it's coming from a legal point of view, but it's also kind of a what's the word I'm looking for? It's kind of defunct where it's not really in the consciousness, in the sort of marketing consciousness. So I don't think it's really fair for them to get like litigious about something that is about 30 years old, 30, 40 years old now. They haven't done anything. They haven't made any serious moves on those products before.
Well, they made O-ring figures of their own, which didn't really take off, at least not in the way that they had hoped.
But then,
and they didn't really give it a fair go in the first place. Like,
but then Hasbro
is very exclusive.
But then Hasbro didn't even prove that what they are offering is better than the knockoffs, because and somebody actually mentioned third-party Gundam kits and stuff like that earlier up on the chat. And the thing is, like, this is where I come in from as well. I hate pirated model kits. I absolutely hate them, because they are shit to build. They are very cheap. They're very easy to get your hands on. And they're also responsible for putting people off the hobby because of how much trouble they are. They actually create an incorrect perception of the effort required to build a Gundam kit. And so, you know, Bandai, the IP owner of Gundam, they go quite far to make sure that, firstly, their product is better than any knockoff product, that is out there, and that they also make sure that their product is like of a very, very high standard. Hasbro hasn't done that with their vintage line, so I don't feel so. Yes, I think where the employees coming from, I'm like, yeah, cool, defend the IP, and you know that's a good thing, but you're defending a company who hasn't made a better version of the knockoffs. And so where's his argument? Like, what? You support it, you are a customer, it's your money, you're choosing to buy something of quality, and Hasbro is not the people, are not the people, you know, supplying you with the quality product. So of course you're going to a third party, you know? And I think if Hasbro had to take some kind of legal action against Black Major, they're dumb. They should actually reach out to Black Major and be like, okay, cool. How do we make this? How do we do this? How do we make money? Why don't you be
Black Major could take, I mean, he's putting himself
in a
precarious position by putting his hand up and saying, hey, can I apply for the license? Because Hasbro is doling out the license to anyone.
I'm pretty sure he has. I'm pretty sure. I don't know, but I'd imagine that he maybe has. I'm saying he, I don't know, but I imagine they have.
They
also Hasbro makes themselves inaccessible to most people. So.
Yeah, well, that is also true. But you know, if you were to go the legal route and to apply for the license, as so many other, you know, you can get GI Joe branded stationery and mouse pads now. They seem to be pretty liberal about throwing it all around. But look, O-Ring is a kind of a hallowed ground for them. I think it's pretty much common knowledge that Super 7 were interested in doing OG O-Ring style GI Joes. However, Hasbro wanted to reserve that for themselves because they were on the verge of relaunching the retro collection themselves. We all know how that wound up. I know that's pretty much DOA.
There's this, I don't know what the name of the guy, or actually it's not just one guy. You know, if I go into Motu, if I look at Motu, yes, Joburg, there's a few guys that because of Motu, and I'm talking about Masters of the Universe for the one person who doesn't know what I'm talking about. You know, they created a whole bunch of like designer figures, not Mattel themselves. Like, it's such a pop culture icon. You know, it's He-Man, it's Skeletor. They all have like a lot of those figures have a very shared buck. And so guys have been like making these like intentional knockoffs, like, and they have kind of an ironic twist to them. And Mattel doesn't like freak out. Mattel, like, they're like, oh, okay, cool. They see it as flattery. It's and Black Major in their own way kind of do the same thing. I mean, like, okay, I've got, I just dropped it now, but it's the Red Ninja. It's the one I've been playing with for the last 10 minutes on camera in the show. You know, they've been providing weird takes on stuff, you know, like kind of white Crimson Guards and all that kind of stuff. And then they've also been doing like interesting stuff like glow-in-the-dark ninjas and all kinds of like just fun, weird designer toy kind of GI Joe stuff, which is really fun, which only actually enhances the brand. So I don't agree with the argument of Black Major is bad and is hurting the brand and is hurting the IP and oh my god, they should get slapped on the wrist. The people who should get slapped on the wrist is, as Rob was speaking about earlier, are the factories that are selling off runoffs or doing knockoffs, producing knockoffs in the same factory and putting them out there. Or
Hasbro switched factories. I think they've moved from China to Vietnam, so that factory is now like, okay,
whatever. Let's go for it.
We've still got these parts. Let's make a few thousand extras. I don't know. That's my assumption.
And on that topic, maybe Hasbro should be like, well, this figure obviously did really well. Let's find a way to re-release it. You know, because people want it. Like, so instead of like keep the original exclusive and collectible and whatever else matters to people who buy toys for their financial value, keep that vibe. So then release another one that looks pretty much the same and give him a small silver accent somewhere or red accent and produce more of those. Then
I think the belt buckle. I don't know. Funny you should mention it. That Supreme Snake or whatever. I don't even know the name. I'm not a classified guy.
I don't even know that figure either. Yeah.
The belt buckle is the tell. Apparently on the original, the belt buckle is silver. On the remake, it's black. It's as simple as that. However, if you're not savvy to this, if you're not on the lookout for that, I mean, it is it is an exclusive Cobra Commander, and it is missing from most people's classified collections. So this is an absolutely sought after substitute, since the quality is not that far off. It even comes with the packaging, the sort of the gatefold, doesn't it?
Hey, madness! That's amazing. Listen, I'm not endorsing that, by the way. I think that's a current product they have on the shelves, and they have had. It's like a product that they still are putting new versions of on the shelves. Knockoffs of that, bad. Hasbro should sort that shit out. It's gonna hurt their products. It's gonna hurt their bottom line. Okay, especially when they need to sort that stuff out. That's off. I'm not endorsing buying that.
The figures
but I am
already
endorsing
come and
Black Major.
gone.
With that kind of
Okay, but look, I mean, this was raised by Talking Joe, so I am going to kind of just throw it in your eyes, guys, that's Cobra Commander is no longer in production. That's sort of 2 years ago already.
But the classified line is still in production. That's like making knockoffs of Ninja Turtles from the new movie. That is the current line. In fact, it's weird. I feel like the vintage stuff, vaporware. That's the word I was looking for. The vintage figures are vaporware. I feel like vaporware it's gonna be adopted by people. So instead of creating more resistance to it, find an avenue to make that happen. When people find avenues to make that happen, they stop people from committing crimes. In South Africa, I just want to put this out there, marijuana is legal. For example, you can possess it, you can grow it, you can smoke it in South Africa. You just are not allowed to sell it. Okay? Marijuana-related crime in the country has actually dropped. It's one of the few things in our crime in this country that's actually dropped.
Of course it's dropped. It's no longer a crime.
Exactly. Nobody is killing people for marijuana, for weed, you know? And it's the same thing with the Black Major thing and when the repro parts, like, there needs to be, if there is an authority, if there's some kind of way to put that out in the light in a good way that makes people who are doing that kind of thing feel safe, then it can be tracked. Then there can be, provisions put into place where it says, okay, you know what? If you're going to make Outback's torch as a repro part, then it can't use Pantone 5568F or whatever. It has to use 5568E, which is visually distinguishable.
You're overlooking the one most important thing to Hasbro. The fact that they'd have all these third-party guys on the books and paying them a license fee every year. That's
money.
That's what their bottom line would be happy with. Yeah,
totally. But that's what I'm advocating. It's not what you do,
but just give us money.
If you put it on the table, you can have money. Yes, Rob, go for it.
It's the same as the reuse of. I mean, okay, it's not just like physical items, but I mean, remember, there's also copyright and stuff like that, where they can still strike you down. They can get you for the use of bits of the footage that was made, licensed. Made for them, or pieces of music. I mean, that's a big thing on YouTube, where people, obviously reuse pieces of other things. And yeah, exactly. So if they still own the rights for it, so even if they aren't producing these things currently, they still have the rights necessarily to the likenesses of these figures and those things that they did produce decades ago. So I mean, at least legally, there could be an avenue for them to say that even reproducing anything that we've ever made is wrong.
Yep. And it works retroactively, it seems.
Exactly.
A number of our videos have demonetized because it uses music that Hasbro has now asserted the rights to.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is why we've always opted to use our own music.
Well, eventually we decided. But I think with reproduction parts, you cannot cover like the deceitfulness or the honesty of people, because eventually there will come a time where people will not necessarily know what an original mic was versus what someone reproduced that mic to look like the original. So
that is true.
So eventually it'll come down to, and also you even keep track of all of these little pieces that you've bought over time.
That's I think Hasbro's problem. They don't know how to audit it.
Yeah, that's the thing. But also as collectors,
it's the collecting people
won't know how to audit that either. Because you put a posting on someone comes along, they put a posting on eBay, they say it's complete. And you get the figure, you think it is complete, but you don't know that. And no one else will be able to tell you. Not even the seller knew that it was incomplete because it seemed complete. So it does kind of change eventually the way that these things sort of work. Because also, how do you necessarily then test that a piece is the original piece? I suppose you have to carbon date the plastic, or like know that
you'd put
the
in a lab
material.
test, I suppose. You would have to do
that, so that's the whole huge thing.
but you would have to. That's
down
what
the
you'd have to
line,
do. You'd have to get
to know
forensic
that
with
something
it.
is original or isn't original. I mean, yes, in for the person purchasing the reproduction, it helps them personally to, depending on why they're buying it, to complete a piece, to finish a figure or something. But then also something that isn't reproduction that I was thinking about, like with especially the O-ring figures, is the replacement of screws and the replacement of the O-rings themselves. Like, does that count as reproduction? Does that count then make the figure not as valuable as an original Outback that still has his original screws, still has his original O-ring that hasn't been replaced or refreshed, so the figure works? I mean,
I feel like there's a dividing line in most people's consciousness about these things, but like mechanical parts like O-rings and screws, that's kind of almost type 1 category that can,
that's like the nuts and bolts on a collectible Lamborghini, for example.
It's just wear and tear. You're going to have to replace those parts.
Okay, so those aren't considered like original parts.
No. Look, they just are. They don't upset a future buyer. Then you got the middle category, which I put reproduction stickers in, because yes, they jazz up an old vehicle beautifully, but if you're a vintage purist, that did not come off the original label sheet. It should not be on the original plastic. But I mean, that has existed for years and years and years, and people haven't really complained about it too much because they do such a good job, and it really spruces up. Like, old stickers look crummy. Like a vehicle that is otherwise perfect, that has crummy, misapplied, wonky, peeling, cracking stickers.
Yes, enough about my condor. Yeah, I feel bad enough.
That is very acceptable, it seems. Only the most purist of purists would be like, no, I'm not accepting that as original. But repro parts are that sort of a third category where, now it's suddenly the plastic that is all new, or resin as it may be. So it's a different material even. That's what really kind of trips people up. And something else that I want to add into the debate is the fact that like this has also divided the community to the point that some people are like sending like hate mail to like popular figures who endorse the stuff are getting hated on to the point where like it feels like almost legal action needs to be taken, because it's like, if I see you in the street, I will kill you, and I will kill your children, even if these are hollow words, like the threat. No, that is actionable. That's worth having a talking to from the boys in blue.
Well, that's a threat against your life, so yes.
Exactly, absolutely. And that stuff gets flagrantly thrown around. People are like legitimately angry. It started in the Star Wars world, but it's kind of moving through.
Yeah, it's going into all the different toy lines that are vintage lines that have pieces and parts that do easily get lost or
people are impassioned about this stuff, and rightly so. For a lot of people, it is actually also a means of living. Like, people buy and sell vintage toys knowing their value and expect proper value for them. Interesting. I suppose it's a debate that goes round and round, but I guess I want to get conclusively from you guys. Do you endorse, or should we do this? Or we not?
Hey, Sergeant Slaughterhouse.
Welcome. I would like to, because we're fairly smart-ish people-ish. I would like us to present a solution to make. I would like us to find a solution for repro pods, in the sense of. I'll start it off. Okay, people who are selling GI Joe parts and whatever's, right? If there was some way that they could quote unquote get the parts graded, which also creates a whole other gray area, and they are graded and certified as selling original parts.
Mark them so that the parts actually have like a label or something on them. I think someone mentioned in the chat. To verifying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like you could become you could have a verified seller rating. I'm a verified original GI Joe part seller or original toy part seller, as certified by this body.
Yeah.
If it's that important to people and they want to get that like homicidal about it, then why aren't those people trying to find a solution to the problem? But instead, you know, they were resorting to baser, you know, thought patterns. You know, like it's just silly. I like I'm gonna say I like Black Major. I like them because I have seen GI Joe for how many years now? I've seen the same bunch of characters for a very, very long time, and I really appreciate that they're doing things like a ninja and an Ali Viper color scheme. It's fun. It's interesting. Gives me something like cool to chase. It's fun to add to my collection. Am I hurting an IP that is 40 years old that has taken a lot of my money already? No, I'm not. Hasbro made their money out of that era of toys. So, you know what? Am I?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, the people making the money is the people selling you the toys or reselling you the toys that they've owned. Then
they're putting their kids through school.
Someone else.
They're paying their medical bills.
Yes, Vincent. I mean, as you say, like Repro makes it possible for you to complete your toys at an affordable price. And yes, you would never sell anything without listing any Repro parts on the item. But the thing is, like down the line, who you might have sold it to won't necessarily say that when they sell it on, or the person after them won't even necessarily know that the parts that you've replaced with you that aren't originals anymore. That's the thing. You know, down the line, 5, 10, 20 years from now, what is the differentiation between an original part and a Repro part? There will come a time where people won't even know.
And what is the punishment?
But
what is the punishment?
The punishment is being upset. I mean, there is no. You can't.
What's going to happen? Are the collecting police going to come to your house and slap some cuffs on you? Be like, "You're naughty. You bought fake parts." You can't
manage this. You can't. There is no level at which you can manage people reproducing parts because they don't all communicate with each other. You know, tell each other like, "Oh, you know, these are the guidelines that we follow to reproduce parts." That's the thing, and you cannot put standards in place either, because it depending on the reasons why they're reproducing the pieces. Also necessitates them not necessarily being honest about why they're reproducing things. You know, whether they're reproducing parts or entire kits or figures in themselves. They're doing it because it's popular, because they know it will sell. So I think reproduction it's a necessary evil for the people that want to replace the parts and make the collections more complete for cheaper. And it's something that obviously won't ever go away. I think the sort of knockoff sort of thing is in many markets, and it will enter into whatever market you're in, especially as things get older, because people do want to finish their collections and make them more complete, at least for themselves.
So
there's nothing you can do about it, really, unfortunately.
Thank you, Moonlights 47.
Repro Corps, exactly.
No, the Repro cops. Like, yeah, you know, he just said the Repro cops to coin retro blasting. It's like, yeah, that's exactly the thing. Like, at the end of the day, what it all comes down to, if it's original, cool. Okay, that's awesome. Especially, I think, when it comes to the figure, when it comes to the actual figurine itself, you know, there are a lot of things that tell you that it's the original. There's a lot of paint applications. There's a lot of finessing and stuff in the joints and the design and the construction of the figure that, you know, it's very discernible. The accessories is obviously where the gray area starts coming in. But at the end of the day, like I was saying, if you're going to get to this point in your life, you're going to go, wow, you know, I really want to get Snake Eyes' 3-piece nunchaku, because for some reason the plastic has failed on every single one of them in the whole world, and now the little ring that holds them together is now crushed. So now an original piece for that is gonna, like, I don't know, it's gonna jump up. It's gonna be $5,000 to get yourself an original trisectional staff or 3-piece nunchaku for like Snake Eyes, right?
I hope I'm dead by then.
Yeah, me too. Okay. Or at least I hope the one that I have is still in place, so that maybe my kids can sell it off and put their kids through college, or I don't know, buy a loaf of bread. We don't know what the future looks like. But the thing is, you are still going to be able to sell that piece for money. You're going to still be able to go up to somebody and go, well, you know, I've got this. How much are you willing to pay for it? And somebody might go, I'll pay you $50 for it. And then you'll be like, I don't want to sell it for $50. And then that's it. Until you really do need $50, then you'll find a way to sell it. It's commerce. That will never hurt the market. I want to say never hurt the market, but I don't think it has this power. I don't think like one day what's going to happen is you're going to complete your GI Joe collection, and then it's great because the holy light is going to shine on it, and then you're going to pass off into the next realm, and God or whoever it is that you have to look in the face is going to go, well, I hate to break it to you, most of your GI Joe collection was a repro. Enjoy heaven. I don't think it's gonna make a difference. At the end of the day, you're living now. You got weapons.
Absolutely.
You put them in your toys' hands. You play with them. You make pew pew sounds. And for most people, it's in a box somewhere. Seriously, like, chill. Like, honestly, chill.
Yeah, I mean, Sergeant Slaughter. I mean, he sums it up nicely. Anti-repro naysayers are usually those who consider value over display as financial only. If you don't want to mortgage your house for a certain accessory and a cheaper option is out there, go for it. And Woodman, I think, adds on to that with exactly the value for something is based solely on what someone will pay for it. And the thing is, yes, these things are worth a lot of money to all of us right now.
But the intrinsic value is very low.
But down the line, these things are worthless unless you
I told you, man, like $70
unless you understand the value of what the thing is.
I mean, plastic toy.
If a mother comes along and takes her son's Magic the Gathering card collection, and some of those cards can be worth tens of thousands of dollars, and just throws them all out because she didn't understand the value of what the things were, they were essentially valueless. So the thing is, it's just paper or pollution. This is just plastic. It's meaningful to us, but at some point it will be meaningless to someone else down the line. So it's true. The value that we place in these things is the financial value, or the I don't know, collecting value, or the like happy feeling value. That's all down to us personally.
So it'll plateau and then drop off a hill. Well, it does at
some point. Everything it will happen with everything essentially. As
the point made by Spoonkiller that once this generation is gone, these will become worthless because Hasbro failed to keep kids interested in their IPs. That, I would just say that like tin toys from the 1940s still have value, but they were a much lower production run. This plastic junk that we have littering our collections is mass produced. It is.
It's the same in comic collecting as well.
Product for comics from the 90s.
Comic collecting, I mean, basically anything after 1980 is essentially worthless because they produce so many of them, and the worth that they do put into those comics, that they especially today they're producing like 1 in 100 variants. That is artificially created value. Well, why the comic books from the 70s and before are worth what they are is because there are key events that occurred on those comics. It's the first time something happened, but not just that. It's because they were so few produced, because they were just produced to be entertainment. It was produced to make money. It wasn't produced because they knew down the line people would collect them. So they're only valuable because there are so few of them, and because but only some of them are actually worth something, because it's an antique. So yes, eventually these will be antiques if someone understands their value and can impart that value to someone else, so they can explain it in a way that the people would understand and would create monetary interest in someone else to purchase them. So I mean, eventually, repro parts, I don't know. I think it's fine. Repro parts are okay. It really comes down to the person themselves. What the value.
Now go get that scarlet crotch, Rob. Go get that scarlet crotch.
Oh no, I couldn't. No,
I'm gonna throw something.
You've just said that.
I'm gonna.
That is the one part.
I want the figure.
You want the whole figure? Okay. Oh, really? Hang on now. You've just contradicted yourself. You're saying
I'm saying you as a personal choice.
Okay, the royal you.
For me myself,
for yourself,
I'm choosing not to. I would rather have an original figure with original
broken crotch.
Original, cool. I am happy to get
I'm happy to.
I'll be getting some.
That's totally okay.
Awesome, man.
But I'm not out there looking to replace the piece. I think I like the figure the way it is. I don't need to replace it. Make it more the way it was originally.
Let's whole again.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
More hole.
More hole. Oh gosh, guys.
Here's the thing, right? So somebody mentioned here about somebody mentioned here about knockoff bootlegs and how it's how they're used to scam people. Well, I don't think that this is a healthy way to look at it. So I'm not endorsing this, but I think you need, if you're going to be in the collecting game, I think that there is a barrier to entry, and that barrier to entry is you will get scammed at one point or another. You will get scammed, most likely very early on in the beginning, because you'll find something that's too good to be true, and you'll be excited about it, and you might drop a lot of coin on it, and then realize you've actually bought a turd. It's going to happen. It happens to some people. It's just part of the beast, and maybe buying a bootleg figure is part of your journey there. So now you have a bootleg figure. Now you have a medium by which to compare something to, and it'll make you more savvy and make you more aware and question things more.
But
I'm not saying
the collecting game. That is the game.
Yeah.
Is the more knowledge you have, the better deals and the better things you will be able to acquire.
So you've got to kiss a few toads before you get your handsome prince. Yeah, yes. Learn some hard lessons and come back.
If you're in the collecting game financially, then you have to be smarter than the next guy. Unfortunately, that's just that's the game. If you are stupid, you are going to be tricked by these people.
You got to learn.
And hey, maybe if you happen upon a sweet deal, it's too good to be true. You purchase it, and you're not particularly savvy. You sleep easy because you're like, sweet, I got that hard to find figure at a song. I win the internet for the day. And long may that feeling last. Like ignorance, I have discovered, is bliss. I kind of want to cap this debate off a little bit by saying that anyone who has a sizable collection, if you have gone through your collection and made a parts list, then you are damned. Just like I was. I should have never made that list to begin with. Because once you've got a checklist of like, I need so-and-so's mic, I need so-and-so's antenna, I need this, I need that, I need this, I need that. The last things remaining on your list are inevitably going to be these unicorns, these impossible, tiny little slivers of plastic. And for that purpose alone, the Repro guys are a godsend. Because I almost don't care about the toys. I care about this list. I care about deleting things from my list. Like, whew, it's gone. That list is getting shorter and shorter and shorter by the day, and eventually, poof, it'll disappear. Yeah, right.
And what will happen at the end of that stuff, right? But what will happen at the end of that rainbow? When you get to the end of that rainbow, that end of that list, is life going to be better? Right?
Look, I will no longer have a list that plagues me, Paul. Once that list
I understand that. There's freedom from that.
Once that document has actually been deleted from my mobile device and from the cloud and from my laptop, once it's gone, like I'll be like, I've done it. I've done it. So I'm 3 or 4 steps closer to that. Every time I kind of hit delete on a sort of a row,
it's a happy feeling. Yeah.
So nice. So yeah, it doesn't matter. The plastic doesn't matter. Just what the mind game matters.
Welcome, Ben.
But here's
hello,
and you know
Ben.
what's cool?
We miss you, buddy.
You know it's awesome here with you, dude. And I can speak to you about this, and I can speak to Rob on this, and I can speak on myself on this.
Speak to all of us.
We are all looking for something like to add to our GI Joe collection, and it's going to be great because you're going to be released from this list. I may have I can't even think of an accessory that I'm really dying to have. Maybe I will have Big Bear's grenades. That would be nice one day. I don't know. Big Ben, thank you. Big Bear. I was thinking, I actually need a Big Bear figure as well. It'll be nice to have that. I'll be like, yeah, you can recreate moments from the gaming thing. But ultimately, I have so many great GI Joe toys. And Steven has so many great GI Joe toys. And so does Rob. And you know what? We actually play with those toys. Okay? And that's great. Like, and now we need some weapons for our guys because they've got holes in their legs and things like that. And they need damn torches for those holes. So let's have them. And we play with our toys. It's not like we're ungrateful for what we have. And it's not like we're sitting here and going, at the end of this rainbow, oh my God, we're going to reach Toy Valhalla. I'm going to, hit new highs in my life. I'm going to see through time and space. It's just going to be like, cool. I got like something to plug into Artback's leg. I got a yellow blizzard. Great. Like, this is fun. I'm going to play with him. And I'm going to do it on the internet and make people really freak out.
Yeah, I mean, repro parts do have a place. They add things to your collection that you want to add to them. For the people buying the repro parts directly, I think there's no problem with that. I mean, you're choosing to do what you want with those pieces. And as Baron says, as long as people are being honest about it, I think repros are totally fine. The thing is, there will be people who aren't honest about it. But really, in the end, there's nothing you can really do about that.
But that's never changed. That's always been there.
That's always been there, and that's why I think putting a focus or saying people should be smarter when collecting. That's important. That's always important. If it means something to you to have the originals, you have to be smarter about getting them. That's just how it is. Hello, Jeremy, and welcome, Datalinks Magnus. Yo.
Steve, the last little thing I want to put on this whole, it's a question to you now because of your repro pods.
All ears, brother.
And it's a question, my dude. Yo. Do you feel that the torch on Outback, being a repro, somehow makes Outback more difficult or easier to play with?
Here I was thinking it would be a question about the quality of that torch, which I've already said is kind of excellent. More difficult to play with. I can always get a new one. If I was to use it in a play motion, and if I lost that piece, I could essentially get it back without too much trouble.
Exactly.
So
it doesn't diminish the fun of playing with the toy.
It is giving me license to use this guy, because if you use this figure in photography or in play motion and he lacks that thing, people, we can't help ourselves. We'll have an immediate, if you're in the know, you're like,
update the links. Yeah,
it's a commonly lost part and it's missing from this guy. You kind of have a little snigger. You're like, you're in the same boat as me, pal. But if you want to take that picture and have it look like a catalog photo, or if you want to feel authentic, it's nice to not have a little hole in the guy's leg, like so many Outbacks have.
That shouldn't be.
So now I feel that he's photo worthy, he's play motion worthy, he's ready to be used. He wasn't before, now he is. So welcome Outback to the fun.
Hell yeah!
And I know this operates for you as well, Paul. You don't regard a figure as having words. You don't regard a figure as having entered your collection. I got there, thank you. Until it is complete. Until that time, he stays in a box under the bed. He doesn't go out on display.
Yeah,
right.
Because then he's like all there, but he's missing a shotgun on his leg or something.
Just an enormous satisfaction. And this comes back to my list that almost the plastic doesn't matter. It's my mental tally of these things that like, yes, checkbox.
I'm haunted by my
collectability. I can forget about hunting that part. All right, guys, I think that's enough for the repro debate. It goes around and round in circles, but I guess none of us are strongly opposed to it. We are happy for the bootleggers to continue. If you want the details of the repro guy I used, I'm happy to give them via direct message. So message us arealsouthafricanhero@gmail.com.
Not sponsored. Putting that out there.
And let us know what you think about repro. Like if you have really strong opinions either way. Does it bother you? Do you like it?
Spoonkiller says we should make a poll to settle this.
All right, I'll tag to Facebook and YouTube and Twitter. So if you're on any of those platforms, as well, if you're watching this, you most certainly are. We will have it out. See what the numbers tell us, or at least the numbers of people who subscribe to us.
Against repro.
We'll do Hasbro's market surveying for them. So nice of us.
Hasbro don't care. We're here to talk about some comic books, aren't we, boys?
They drink our tears.
We have a comic book from 1983 and a comic book from 2012.
5
Late.
books.
One, I think.
2019.
We are reading prospectively in terms of the old school run from 1 to 155. We are also reading retrospectively from 300 back to 155.1 or 0.5. Yeah, that one. Wherever the IDW runs.
We're going back from the future.
We're going back. And hopefully meeting in the middle some way. So, gents, would you prefer to do the old school or the new school first?
Can we get the new school one out of the way? Because there's like 5 of them.
Right.
Wow.
I would really like to eat my veggies first.
We were tasked with reading
Murder by Assassination.
Which is not the hit new CBS dramedy from the guys
Can
who
someone
brought
tell me
you Dexter.
What is the
the
title?
title of this book? What is the title? Murder by Numbers. Is this the...
What does the title have to do with the story?
Exactly.
So what
is
is
this the one where
so
the neighbor murders everybody in the neighborhood? I don't know.
There's no assassination happening here.
Well, so that one guy in the Senate hearing gets his neck snapped, doesn't he? By Alcalbra.
He does.
He's collateral damage.
But he does. But it's just in the moment. It's not his primary mission. Wasn't to do that.
Dude, I agree with what Talking Joe is saying here. So we should probably do 2 polls and specify reproduction figures and reproduction figure parts, as in accessories. That's a good one. Thank you, Talking Joe. And how are you, man? I hope you are kicking all the butt.
Murder by Assassination. Basically, the story is it's an origin story for Sherlock, a new GI Joe, as well as a international manhunt for a man named Alcalbra, who is the linking part. They basically chase him across the globe. They're trying to get him, and he pops up all over the place. So the first story is the setup of Alcalbra, and there's kind of like a mini story where he kind of pops up again. He just happens to pop up in Washington, D.C. for a bit, and the manhunt continues from there. It feels very disjointed. It feels like a couple of different stories all kind of smashed together. And the linking pieces, there's supposed to be some sort of intrigue as to like, what is all these places that he's at? What are these missions that he's undertaking for Cobra? Which especially like later on in, I think, part 5, like they're like, oh, what were these construction bots doing? What were they piecing together? Where is this all going? So it's all very much like behind the scenes. But especially the Washington DC one was probably the more interesting of the stories, because you kind of get a feeling for like, how does GI Joe operate within the structure of the US government, and how do they kind of interrogate the choices that GI Joe make, even though it's kind of like a farcical
similar to events in the classic run. They're being asked to answer for action taken on US soil in invasion of Springfield once again. And they're being grilled by the Senate in a closed hearing.
But it almost feels like it's just this. It's like, oh, we had to rescue Snake Eyes because the bad guys were going to turn him into a super zombie. And it's like, how do you really explain that? I mean, their answer is basically, oh, they still took leave. Oh, so they all on leave. Why were they on leave? So no, we can't actually tell you what to do.
So you like this procedural stuff, Rob?
It was, I wouldn't say like, but it was interesting to kind of just see a different angle, as to
it results in
part of the bigger picture. Like how does GI Joe function within the structure of the US government and the US armed forces?
It does result in the only assassination of the piece, because Alcalbra shows up and kills a senator who had Cobra sympathies, or had been kind of, I suppose, bought by Cobra.
Yeah, he was bought by Cobra, yes, and he was there to steal the little camera on his lapel.
So basically, to remove this guy from the board and remove Cobra's kind of involvement, I guess, from being discovered.
Yes,
basically
so
to
that
cover
the
the
sleeper
tracks.
agent of the other senator was still covered. I mean, by the end of the story, we don't see her again. So maybe she I mean, I know she doesn't pop up again in the next 15 issues.
You've read the future, but not the past. It's very
but not the past.
So then we get concerned with a foreign nation, sort of I suppose it's maybe an analog to China, or probably one of the more jungle Asian nations, sort of
more like
Southeast Asia.
Indonesia or something. Yeah.
Yeah, or Thailand, maybe Laos, Cambodia.
Because of the because of the seeing the tiger draft in this shot and the singer made me feel like, okay, it's possibly Thailand. And then also the style of the writing of the languages, the writing.
I don't think they go with anything resembling Thai. They use American. Oh, not American. They use English. Sort of
no, not that
symbols. Not.
Yeah, but then there's I don't want to call it Sanskrit because it feels dismissive, but basically the Sanskrit used for you'll see later on, like in some of the street signs and things like that. There we go.
Yeah, that does look like Thai. Now, suddenly Al-Qabra's mission is to secure nuclear weapons. So...
Oh, no. Well, he had the nuclear weapons. He was selling them.
Okay.
Right. So in this mission, in this situation, Al-Qabra, what he was doing for Cobra was selling off some of their nuclear armaments to make Cobra money.
And so what's your observations here, Rob?
Well, in general, that's what I'm kind of saying. Like, it's very disconnected. You know, it's an international manhunt for this guy, led by Sherlock. I think especially after the Washington mission, where they realized that this guy is fairly prominent in Cobra. Well, this mission itself was fairly interesting. I liked the inclusion of the surprise appearance of the Dreadnoks and the resolution of the story.
Oh, did you really
as well?
Great, go, Rob. That is progress, my dude. You are learning to love those Dreadnoks just a little bit.
Well, it was just so left field. It's just suddenly Dreadnoks and pirates from some random issue of GI Joe back in the day. That I think the research assistant remembered that these characters existed. So the chase was interesting. The kind of use of the newer characters. I mean, what's the one character's name? Black Hat. There's Top Down or Bottom Line or something.
Bottom Line.
I love Bottom Line. Bottom Line. Admin,
well, she's
dude.
Non-combat, it seems.
Yeah.
And she's like in the field. Interesting.
And what's the other one called? Case something?
Caseload.
Caseload. Not
I'm not fond of anyone who has load in their code name. I mean,
I'm waiting.
We're gonna take a load with.
Guys,
my 2-year-old just dropped a heavy load.
Guys, can I just put a small pin in this one just here for 2 seconds? Because this is something that has been nagging at me since reading these 5 issues.
Okay.
Does everybody in GI Joe need to have a code name? Like, does the JAG lawyer need to have a code name like Caseload? Does the administrative clerk need to have a name like Bottom Line? Can't she just be like Janine in administration? Is that not good enough?
Well, from top to bottom, I mean, they do discuss it in the DC episode, like to protect the families as well as the identities of the agents themselves. They would prefer to use code names, and I think either they remain completely nameless, but you still have to refer to them if you are in an outside situation. So even if they are the admin people. I think it's ridiculous to say it out loud, but yes, they do actually require code.
They're just trolling the Senate, basically, by making you call the person Caseload.
So like when... I mean, Rob, listen, I think we're in good company here. You got Scoop, and I know Scoop is notoriously not loved by many Joe fans for not being the most action. So imagine like today's generation that receives, a Caseload under the Christmas tree, or Bottom Line, or Deadline, which is the GI Joe tax consultant.
Well, these are certainly not toy Joes. These are
they're administrative guys. Yeah,
they just added in there.
I wanted to be a child, and I wanted to imagine them being a toy.
No,
and
absolutely.
I wanted to be childish about it.
I can't imagine someone buying them. No one would ever buy these figures, them as figures. But Moonlight points out Sherlock is like the worst code name you can have for a detective character. Every detective.
I don't want to say it, but I'm worried that it's going to be a little bit. It's a little on the
nose.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Maybe.
Well, I suppose it's what else do you call a detective character? Like, also, it's the name that they
I don't know. Dick.
As part of the unit. I don't know, like I don't know, like unloader. I don't know, case solver.
Case solver.
I don't.
Why do they call the detective bottom line? That would be cool.
That would be
cool. Get to the bottom of this. I don't know. Whatever. It's like I'm just like
if
I'm being devil's
for
advocate.
No other reason than a quick shorthand
yeah.
for the writer. Like Larry's been quoted often enough saying that there are hundreds of characters to try and file in his brain. If the code name is on the nose, it only acts as a kind
the
of
more obvious the code name, for sure.
Absolutely.
It is better.
Who's the Detective Joe again? The crime and investigation.
Who's the guy with the big gun roadblock? I mean, there is kind of a history of that. I mean, the names do kind of resonate with their
as a construction hat, you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, generally speaking, the code names resonate with their function. So it's not just for him as a writer; it's for the GI Joes themselves to more easily, I suppose, identify their agents. I don't know. Chuckles.
Cool. Like I said, I want to be a bit of.
I want to move us on. I do really do, because the old school is where we really want to sink our teeth.
Oh, for sure.
But the final issue of this 5-part has a delightful return to form. It's all out action in the jungle at a kind of a Cobra installation that's supposed to be abandoned, but there's activity. So we've got old classics like Rock and Roll and Falcon. We've got Wetsuit in his kind of land gear. And then Recoil, just to kind of give you a third-tier G.I. Joe figure into the mix. All you Recoil fans out there, all three of you.
Sherlock and that
other
character, Mambo.
Sherlock and Molto, or Molto, the Filipino. Yeah, they're all in the mix. So it's a great mix of new and old fan favorites.
Still across all of these issues, there's still the fantastic like military jargon, especially the first issue, with them kind of like rolling out. You get the explanation of like why the trucks, their functions, and why they in the line, what their uses are. And this one also has this fantastic, not fantastic, but I mean, yes, it's brass tacks mission like speak. And I think that's usually the stronger issues for me is when it's more focused on what they're doing rather than necessarily why they're doing it.
And in this one, Alcalbra's collaborating with Overkill and some construction bats who are assembling something to go into containers to then be taken to ports unknown. So we've got, once again, little threads to pull at of like, teasers of a master plan happening, which Larry loves doing. Sometimes he'll pay them off, sometimes they'll be forgotten, but they're all, he's working them in. Doesn't know quite what he's going to do with them just yet, but they're present. Cobra's always got something, some machinations. Yeah. Exactly. He's creating options for himself. I love it. I love it. Love it. But gents, the presentation of Overkill, what opinions do you have on that? Overkill being classically
very different from how
the Bat Commander, very different from how he was first presented in plastic and in Deke. He now seems to be more
very much a
cyborg.
person. Yeah, he's a cyborg, it seems. I prefer the way he was in toys.
Oh, you like the robot? Well, this is an interesting almost settling of the debate, because in Devil's Due, he very much was a cyborg. And the toys of the era, he was very much a cyborg. So this is Larry in canonic ARAH G.I. Joe picking sides. He's not going to make him the toyetic hot, what was it, green
neon
and
green.
yeah. And certainly not going to take on the Deke animation characterization, which is more in line with like C-3PO. I found, and also I suppose if you want to lump Sigma 6 in with that, also very well-spoken robot. Oh. Now this is very much bare bones and in line with the Devil's Due resetting of Overkill as a cyborg, a sort of resurrected fallen soldier. I'm not going to tell you who it's supposed to be because maybe you want to read that stuff.
Yeah, maybe I do. It gives me some. It gives me hope.
Yeah,
something to be excited about in these issues.
Overkill makes an appearance. Shout outs to Talking Joe. I know that you're listening. I don't know if you're currently listening, but he managed to peg this figure design to Ghost Bear. I mean, who would have remembered that other than Talking Joe? Well done, Mark. Ghost Bear being the bastard child of Quinn, the Eskimo, the deceased mercenary. Yeah. So he is... Yeah, he still thinks that GI Joe killed Quinn, so he naturally allied himself with Cobra. But the uniform is very much a dead ringer for it. Except Ghost Bear has 2 red optics instead of the one exposed
Talking Joe
eye.
brings up a point. Joe fact: the color design for Overkill by Andrew Griffiths was not followed by Jay Brown. It ended up looking quite different to Andrew's intent.
I always wondered this about... Thank you, Mark. I always wondered this about Mr. Brown, that he is looking at maybe the wrong reference material, because a lot of stuff changes in colorization, and it's sometimes immaterial. Sometimes it's just like a Mobat that's brown and a Mauler that's green, sort of palette swapped the tags. Fine, whatever. But sometimes it's quite
drastic. Go up to that Overkill for me, please.
Okay, go up to that Overkill for you, please.
Then what is the color? Then what is the color for that Overkill meant to be then? Because,
well, for the scoop, go and listen to Talking Joe's episode. Or maybe their Facebook group. If you've shared it, Mark, shout outs to you, man.
Because I'm curious, because for me, it's a case of, like sometimes, you know, as a colorist, you might feel that, oh, those colors are just not working for the shot, or they're not leading the eye properly, or maybe, you know, maybe he's the person who has final...
with the figure, which it is in the final colorized art.
That... He might also not get final, you know, he might be the final person to get sign off. So once these colors are in, art director looks at it and generally like, no, change those colors or something like that. I don't know. I don't know what the process is with them. Maybe it's that. But there is it's cool that Overkill shows up. But do you know that they kind of foreshadow him? Rob, I got a feeling you know what I'm talking about. They kind of foreshadow him. If you look at his design here, what does he look like?
Vapor. He looks like yeah, he does actually. He gets
and there's a vapor on early on in the issue that gets shot in the face. What he's doing flying a fang, I don't know. But that was kind of, I felt that I would like to believe that was foreshadowing, that putting vapor on a fang was meant to trigger fans to go, wait, hold on, something's not right here. So I feel like that was maybe a little... I would like to believe that was a bit of narrative.
Vapors are cyborgs in themselves. They've got the standard electronic shunt, don't they?
Yeah.
It's kind of implanted.
I don't think it's probably not the same character, though. I think basically they wanted an interesting looking character to be flying the thing.
Cap.
I mean,
but they could have put anything there. So I think it's just a bit of foreshadowing. I think it's just like, oh, there's a robot that's going to be at the end of this issue. I think they were trying to... I think that's kind of what they were trying to do.
End of the arc. I mean, this is several months later. Part 5.
I think that was the plan. Because you know, when you read these things in a graphic novel, it's a movie. So
yeah, that's true. But I mean, but personally, I didn't read more into it than he just shot someone, which was a running gag, as it were, with Alcalibra, which is then paid off with him trying to shoot Overkill.
Yeah. The rule of threes. He's capped 3 underlings, I think, maybe even 4. And then he tries it on Overkill, and Overkill's like, ha, you fool.
Not everyone has a metal, helmet.
But Alcalibra, I mean, what did you guys think of the reveal? Turns out to be a non-event. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what I was expecting. I mean,
sorry, to make that clear, he was just another Fred series Crimson Guardsman. He was not an alter ego of Firefly.
Yeah, or like, I don't know, Cobra Commander or someone running around doing these things. It's essentially ended up being a nothing burger. I mean, he was just, oh, you're just another Fred series.
I will give it this much. This is probably the most writing for trade paperback that Larry will ever do. But within 5 parts, he sets up this guy. We see this manhunt, and in the end, Sherlock gets her man. I think that is probably the most glowing praise I'm gonna give. Well, no, look, there's lots to praise. The art is once again phenomenal.
The art is fantastic across the board. I mean, these are his regular artists who do fantastic jobs in creating good mechanical stuff, reproducing the Joe vehicles,
the
doing
classics and the new
characters in general. Yeah,
but
I think
high praise for Larry, who by his own admission is a fly by the seat of his pants kind of writer, for having masterminded something that begins and ends within 5 issues and has a conclusive ending. I mean, sure, there are plenty of threads that bleed over into next issues. And
but like the story of Sherlock is very conclusive, and it's cool because it's like, yes, you took my hand, but the Joes gave me a better one.
So it's as if he was actually playing towards that moment. There, confirmed for all time. Larry does think ahead.
I think when he says that, it's not a hard and fast rule. I think it really depends on the story he's telling.
We've always remarked that there's no ways you can be completely blind to what happens next.
Well, you can be, but you end up with Lost. So
writers, right? Yeah, I think he writes the way he writes. That's just it. I think overall, I don't know. Like, I like that it kind of is like a manhunt. They are chasing after this guy, and there are kind of like slightly smaller stories that do occur. That kind of get your interest, and it kind of expands the world of GI Joe in a way. And it's cool to kind of see like different characters chasing after this guy, and them trying to build him up to be something really interesting. But he isn't necessarily that interesting in the end. He just shoots people, and he seems to get shit done. But at the same time, does he get shit done? So I don't know. I think overall, I probably give it like a 3 out of 5. It was a decent read. I wasn't completely bored. Cool to see the Dreadnoks.
Wow, that's saying a lot. I'll be more generous. So I'm going to go 3.5.
Wow.
Yeah. It's nice to see new Joes. I, of course, prefer to see old Joes, but like, if you are going to introduce new Joes, give them some devoted page time. Don't just give us a throwaway guy and then we don't get a sense of them.
Background
I feel like Sherlock is someone who, moving forward, I'll be like, oh yeah,
Sherlock. You'll remember them.
Misty Knight. She's got the bionic arm.
Hell yeah, Sherlock and Mumbo.
You're terrible, Rob. You're the worst. Paul, what's your rating, pal?
I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 5 because I actually quite enjoyed this arc. This is probably aside from the Storm Shadow issue, the Vietnam flashback. That's what I've read. Coming down the pipe, so to speak. This has probably been the most fun that I've had with this line so far, with the modern line, because. We got a little bit that stuff in the courtroom, but we didn't get too much of it for it to be boring. We got some interesting action beats. We got a villain that was a mystery until he was just not that exciting, which was why it's getting 3 and not 4 out of 5, because I felt what he was a letdown. I think it would have been... and also I get, like, maybe don't call somebody Sherlock who falls for the same trick twice. Explosions.
Well, she does the first time.
He's not specialist, right? Yeah.
Her specialty has been smart.
Yeah, no, I think she's a great character. I actually really like her. I think she's a really great character, and I also like the whole prosthetic arm thing, and made me think of that character that I did for the Operation Recall thing, the submission long ago now. It makes me think of that because, I I just felt that was I don't know. I just like that. I just like that she had the prosthetic. I think that's a cool idea. And it just felt a bit like that Tom Clancy show. Jack Ryan had a bit of a Jack Ryan-y kind of feel, and I enjoyed that about it. The payoff was a little bit like of a letdown, to be fair, but it was a fun ride until then. You know, it's 3 out of 5.
I wasn't
upset. Man. Subvert your expectations.
Yeah, exactly. I knew what I was getting out of it. I didn't feel like I'd wasted my life like shit, like that whole thing with the casino and Cobra Casino and
that stuff. Yeah.
Oh, we haven't left it just yet. Yeah. 301's coming, baby. All right, good. Let's move the agenda on to a comic. Okay,
classic issue.
Here comes the Jubber Man preface. Issue 9 of GI Joe was the first issue within the first 10 issues that I ever had as a youth. I didn't until I got the trade paperback, courtesy of Marvel Comics back then, as an adult. I had not read the first 10 issues of GI Joe. So issue 9 was this lonely island of like retro, old school green shirt Joe, a bygone era that I had very little access to. And personally, I loved the glimpse that it gave me. This super spy, like Scarlet was place of pride, man. This is her issue to shine. It's entitled The Diplomat. And the cover, as you may or may not recall, is that amazing image of Scarlet tumbling out of a helicopter, or maybe she's trying to pull herself into a helicopter. I'll bring it up on screen. Why am I wasting my breath?
Yes, we have the Marvel video
for the people who are listening.
Yes, and it's so dramatic. Like, she could shoot that Cobra Trooper in the face, but then she'd be tumbling out with him. He's about to pistol whip her with impunity. This is a Chick Stone and Mike Fosberg cover, and this marks Mike's entry into G.I. Joe. So it's his first blushings with this stuff. I think he does admirably well. There's some interesting finishes from the colorist even that we'll get into later. But like,
the layouts are really nice as well.
Love it. This book will get unfettered praise from me. I cannot be objective about this because it's something that I read and reread and reread as just an example of like a bygone era. My opening remark about Scarlet is that this book made me want to make the female characters my protagonists. Something about a super competent woman just makes her superhuman. You know, she surpasses her male compatriots, comrades in so many aspects. This is before the kind of the Mary Sue arguments started being leveled at women that were just almost all powerful. Scarlet was just, and because she wasn't like other strong females of the era, the Ellen Ripleys or the Sarah Connors, who Sarah was a waitress, Ripley was a truck driver. This was a consummate professional. She is a soldier. All of her training, her abilities, it's all baked in. This isn't something she learned on the job or just kind of finessed later on in life. No. She is this finely honed machine. So she became an avatar or a protagonist that I could use in my play that had earned all of this stuff. She was fully capable day one, day one that I was introduced to her. So the second I had the toy in my hand, I was like, she can do all this stuff. She is able to be toe-to-toe with Snake Eyes, basically, on all those missions. And she's a female. Wow. And this is the issue that gave her that place of pride for me. But
and another interesting thing about the issue is it's also not written by Larry Hama. It's written by Stephen Grant, who's probably most best known for
not
writing
friends with Alan Grant.
1985, 1986 Punisher miniseries with art by Mike Zeck. Very well written. It's
the Punisher
once
series?
Again the Punisher series. Yeah, I mean this is also very well written because it kind of does take on that the archetype of the one shot story. You know, it's one and done. It starts and finishes. It's a mission. And these are usually my absolute favorites. Yeah, it's a mystery and it's a mystery.
It's a double cross, a twist at the end, which maybe you've seen coming, maybe you didn't. Boy,
Maybe
oh boy,
didn't.
did I become the troll of our playtime, because this issue had it played with my mind, man. Like, all of a sudden, it gave me the idea to have good guy characters turn bad at the last second, to just add another layer of challenge to the gameplay. And this was met with maybe indifference by you, Rob. Maybe you enjoyed it. Maybe it gave you a thrill. It certainly gave me a thrill, because the whole time I'm controlling this good guy character who's going to turn bad, and my heart is racing in every scene that I use him in. But boy, oh boy, our third member of our game time, Alistair, the second that reveal happened, assuming he didn't see it coming, he put his toys down angrily and stormed off. He was like, fuck you. Fuck you, man. This guy that I protected the whole mission is the assassin.
He's the coolest.
He was.
No! Say it and so. Koya, give these people some air.
This issue I have to thank for that. So, spoilers for an issue that is 40 years old, but the diplomat who Scarlet and Clutch escort to the talks with the fictional Middle Eastern nation of Alawi, it's kind of a play on Malawi, is actually the assassin. So the diplomat who's supposed to foster talks with this Persian Gulf nation, he is actually an employee of Cobra, or a member of Cobra. And throughout all these trials and tribulations trying to get him there, I mean, they're frogmen. There are men in jeeps pursuing, and there's a bomb in the hotel room that he was staying in.
Helicopters, cars,
gas,
the Monopoly man.
All the while, of course, Snake Eyes and Stalker are on a kind of a globe-hopping mission of their own to try and get information on who the assassin might be. And they eventually succeed. But are they too late? Guys, I could pick at the furniture. For instance, there's one point where Scarlet notices that the plane they're in is not flying in the correct direction.
How does she know
and
that?
surmises that the pilot might be a traitor as well. But what is this dial that gives it away? It's like a fuel gauge? That's not a compass needle. Anyway,
well,
so
I thought the same thing when I looked at the panel. I was like, oh, wait a minute. She realizes that the plane is out of fuel. And then I read the next panel. I'm like, oh, how do you get that from that gauge?
Another thing that bugged me as a child, so Stalker and Snake Eyes go to London, England, and
wonderfully stereotypical British man.
It looks like this man lives at the Tower Bridge, basically.
Yeah.
Because, like, what the hell are we looking at? Anyways, the most stereotypically Winston Churchill British man of a man.
He loves his... Yes. What did he have for breakfast?
Brashes and chips.
And brashes.
Which is not a thing. It's just not a thing.
It's just sausages and chips. I mean, I guess that's what it is.
The kids reading this one knows better.
Joe!
Anyway, the other thing that bothered me, and I was always wondering about it, is he tells Stalker, he writes out for Stalker, and this is very clever, the room is bugged. So obviously it's an audio bug and not a video one. So he writes something on a piece of paper, and then he writes address in Amsterdam, and then there's kind of squiggles beneath it. Was the artist not prepared to write out a fictional address, or the squiggles denoting something else? Like, why is this guy scribbling on this pad when he should be writing out the address for Stalker and Snake Eyes?
It probably is a stand-in for the address. But it's
Paul,
cool
I want
because it has entry.
Yeah, it does, absolutely. I want you to weigh in on the beautiful work done by the colorist.
Yes, I wanted to weigh in on that as well, because I absolutely love the far backgrounds in a lot of these shots. They are so stylized.
At various points, Vosberg's work is being finished in sort of deep background by the colorist, doing
like that shot in particular. Thank you.
In Amsterdam, you've got this beautiful bit of architecture that's basically done in, what would you call that color?
It's just like a magenta, you know, it's a magenta marker or something. But I love that, because that just gives us that depth of field.
That dithering.
It fills in the space. It gives us a bit of atmospheric perspective. It does a lot of fun tricks, and I love that kind of thing, because you're kind of vignetting the background, so to speak. So, I mean, I can't think of a better word to use for that, but I love that. I absolutely
loves doing vertical establishing shots a lot of the time. Like,
yeah.
For basically every place that we go, or vertical panels where there is action that does take place.
Very cell phone friendly.
Colorist, yeah.
The layouts are great. So
out.
Stalker, after their trip to Derek Sutherland's office in London, England, in Amsterdam, they're at a brothel. I mean, the implication is there, even though they don't spell it out at all. Lola is in the top floor, room 13 of this establishment. You've got the sort of the mama character at the concierge. Stalker goes in and is immediately confronted by a hologram of Cobra Commander.
The ghost of Cobra Commander.
Amazing. They even made a figure of this for the comic pack. How cool. It's translucent blue plastic if you're not aware or not familiar. Anyway, so Stalker gets the plan trotted out to them that Hassel is in fact the assassin. And I wouldn't be telling you this if there was any way you'd get out of the room, or alive, says Cobra Commander. Goodbye, Stalker. It's so nice that Cobra Commander knows he's on like codename basis with Stalker. That's cool. I mean, this was probably the only dialogue Cobra Commander and Stalker have ever had, and I'm glad it exists. But something that jumped out at me on this reread is Stalker says, cough, cough, as Snake Eyes pulls him out of the room after rescuing him. We'll worry about this dump later. So clearly G.I. Joe is going to come back to this brothel in the near future and raid it, I suppose. That like this is on the hit list now. This is
it's a known Cobra establishment. It's the same like with the arms dealer. Yes, they knew he was part of Cobra. And they probably would return at some point. And that's why Cobra Commander also was covering up his tracks by murdering that British man.
Oh, yes. Yeah, Sutherland gets electrocuted. Is this a scripting error? When Cobra Commander, I don't know, sends some kind of current through him, zaps him, he says, you put on a good show. Excellent. A pity we must sacrifice one of your resources. Shouldn't it read one of our resources, i.e. you, an arms dealer?
Yeah, I was a bit befuddled by that.
Always bothered me.
Like, wait, what are they trying to talk about? What are they trying to mention here? There's one scene here that I absolutely love. So they're in the aeroplane, and Clutch has now taken over control of the aeroplane after they've dispatched the pilot. And this is like the moment where they basically tell you Scarlet is badass because she knows she can't fly the plane and that Clutch can only mildly fly it better than her. And she's just so cool about the whole thing. She's just cool. You know, like at the end of it, like when she's like, you know, you can open your eyes now. I'm like, that to me, that was like the moment where it kind of went, yeah, Scarlet's badass. She just accepts her fate. She's kind of like, you know, she's just cool. She's just like, it's just such a cool way of making a character strong. And
look,
it was very
Clutch
smart
isn't
way of
wrong,
making...
dude. That is one hairy landing. If you look at the way Fosberg kind of handles terrain, it is beyond precarious.
Of course.
There's also a great
the chase sequence along the mountainside. There's no guardrail. They are in like stratospheric Alps. Like
they're on Pikes Peak.
They're right up against. They're playing chicken with two cars, no guardrail, and the most ridiculously precarious, like sheer drop off.
Yeah. But I mean, it's basically Pikes Peak. Sorry, Rob. Yeah.
No worries. We've moved on now. But once again, the use of the kind of vertical panels really sets up the action really well. You kind of see the cars approaching. There's just so much cool, like different types of action in this issue. It's really awesome.
And also, because she's the consummate professional, like we shouldn't ever sexualize her, but like Scarlet looks way hot. Let's just say.
Yeah.
I mean, that's almost a pornographic image of her thighs.
Well, that's what she was wearing at the time. You know,
yes,
she was.
Stephen.
And
outright pornographic.
She gets
well, they dress up for the occasion. You know, he was at the beach, so
so she's just wearing a gown. But I love the fact that they hang a lantern on the fact that she's going to be in her combat togs in the next sequence. So she says to Clutch, excuse me while I change into my fighting clothes, and you keep your eyes on the road. So yeah, she's going to get down to his scant.
And it's cool that his expression suggests that he was going to look.
Oh,
yeah. Some really great expressions in the characters.
I'd be disappointed if he... I would be disappointed if he didn't.
He's like,
so what's good for the goose is good for the gander, because when they exfiltrate from the plane, or drive the car out of the crashed plane, Clutch is wearing his civvies, right? Can we agree to that?
Mm-hmm.
Then when we next see him, he's in his greens. So I guess he did some changing of his own while driving. Clutch is the man.
Clutch is badass. He's rocking Pikes Peak there, and
the interplay between them is amazing, and it's something that like quickly dies a death because Scarlet remains prominent and Clutch fades into obscurity, and I mourn that because it is wonderful. Like, you almost feel like if she's had a few to drink, maybe Clutch even stands a chance. This absolute dog of a man. I love the idea, just even the hint that like his constant come-ons will yield results. It's cute.
Well, I mean, obviously this was something picked up by Stephen Grant, but it wasn't something continued by Larry as he continued.
It had been established in Larry issues, like in Wars of Death.
It wasn't something that he chose to continue, you know.
Well, the toys dictated it. Scarlet is the only female of the class of 82. Clutch is a vehicle driver. You figure who he's going to play favorites with. Anyways, guys, I, as I say, cannot fault this issue, even though it has faults. It has such...
Well, I think it's small problems. I mean, the overall, it comes together so well. You know, it has a good setup. It has
check this, George Lazenby.
It's
a good choices of characters.
It's a classic 1960s style to so much of Mike Fosberg's work. And even having Hassel, like, he's got a Luger. He's got Megatron, dudes. Sorry, a Walther.
He's also going to lose an eye.
What is it?
He's losing that eye.
It's not a Luger. It's a Walther. P38. P38.
With a long nose version, because they
did a snub, did they?
Well, my dad had one, so yeah.
Wow.
So
German gun.
And he sorted
South African police force had most detectives were issued with a Walther.
Was it stock that was seized in not North Africa, in Windhoek in German Southwest Africa?
I have no idea. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case, dude. My dad did a lot of work in Namibia, so
I'd be surprised if he finished
defeated the German army back in the day.
But it's a great gun until it jams after 3 shots. Yeah,
what a shame.
It's not it's a real upkeep piece. So
I believe it has the unique property of not having to pull the slide back. That you bring up the first bullet by actually pulling the trigger.
Yeah,
won't that do it?
My dad, when I was trained on that, and now you must remember I was about 8 or 9 years old, around there, just before I met David. So I remember my dad told me to pull the slide. Anyway, it was always like procedure. And I think he told me that because it's procedure. But he always told me like to be careful with this gun because it's dangerous. So with any gun. No, with any gun is dangerous. Don't get me wrong. But he did say to me that the Walther it can be a bit of he said it a little bit can be a bit sensitive.
So maybe
something
maybe
along those lines.
Can load without you having to anyway.
Yes, because you can. Yeah, whatever. Maybe that was the case.
My son has just woken up. I need to get onto daddy duties. It's been a wild ride. It's been a wonderful 2 hours.
Power's going out for me soon as well.
Comic books. So let's rate this gorgeous piece of comic book history, GI Joe comic book history.
Comic book history.
And get on with our lives. Thank you to all the folks that have joined us live. It's been, once again, a very vibrant crowd. Lovely to see those numbers climb. I think at one point we had 35 people in the stream, which is...
Yeah, it was great to have some peeps here.
Me love
my age. So, Paul, what do you give this issue? What do you give this masterpiece?
Warts and all, I give this 4.5 out of 5. The only thing that kind of irritated me a little bit about this no, those never irritate me. I just I don't like arrows on panels, on comic book panels. I feel like that's like kind of a fail on the layouts on the pencilist part. Like somebody didn't direct that properly. I know sometimes it happens. It just happens. It just takes a perfect away from this book for me. Otherwise, I think that this is once again an amazing candidate to have been a movie. This could have been such an entertaining movie. It didn't have to be called GI Joe, but you know what? If it was a GI Joe movie or an hour and a half long episode of a TV show called GI Joe, this would be fantastic to watch. It's got a lot of the stuff that makes James Bond from the 80s and from the 80s really fun. Even got a cameo by George Lazenby, which is quite great. I love the characterization of Scarlet. It makes, she's tough
in a bikini.
Yeah, that's one thing, but I just love the way that they managed to make her tough without making her male, if that makes sense. And also love the little gags, like Clutch hiding in the sand. You go, oh God, a typical Clutch, you buried yourself in the sand. But actually, there was a purpose behind him doing that. That was a great little moment in the comic book. Another reason,
but extrapolate that backwards. Like, did he, before anyone arrived at the beach, lie down with his machine gun in his lap, and then Scarlet buried him? Like,
dude, I think he did it himself.
It's hilarious.
But that's the kind of thing. Exactly. That's the kind of stuff that you would find in a Bond film from that same era. I kind of love the sort of synergy there. The other reason I give it 4.
Oh, it's the first use of your colorist sort of background fill-in, because the French Riviera has that lovely kind of mountainscape behind it, and it's just filled in with a block of green.
Exactly.
There's another use of it. The helicopters on the screen that Cobra Commander is looking at.
It's just a great way of adding texture without cluttering up the page with more ink, which could make it messy but the other reason and this is a purely subjective thing, those divers is a really, really great example. And I kind of have this issue as well with the modern era. There's a lot of times where they don't need to talk, dude. They don't need to be having this dialogue. They could have just had this shot, and then they had in there like onomatopoeia. They didn't have to have them talking like, oh no, we better jump in the blue now. Let's get back to the boat.
We'll catch you as a child, then I'm going to say you need to kind of holster that remark for the simple reason that, like, back in the 80s, thank goodness,
everything was described,
marketed for children. This is first and foremost for kids. The fact that it has immediate and enormous rereadability by like a bunch of 40 and 50-year-olds, it's just a testimony to the quality of the writing. But at the end of the day, like, this is for children.
But this is a mistake. This is a mistake that the issues that we just read, the future issues, 180 too many, they made that same mistake as well. There was a lot of action there that had a lot of dialogue that didn't need to have dialogue. It would have been so much cooler had it been like just quiet. That's just. But
5 out of 5 from me, by the way.
Yeah, obviously we know that. Yeah, yeah. Hey, Jaws, thank you so much, my man. Appreciate it. We had one little glitch that we had to go. In fact, the lawyers made a small mistake.
Handsome head injury.
Yeah, just Steve-O's. Steve's got to quickly go and run to his little dude.
Is going to go out at any second now. Like, okay. I can't even tell you when it will go out. So I will probably sign off. Paul, you're gonna if it does happen.
I'll get the video ready. Guys, thank you. Thank you everybody for all the awesome stuff, for all the support, for checking out this podcast every second week. Yeah, and just a small shout out to Hans Chow. Happy birthday, my dude. I hope it's been an absolutely awesome one. Guys, tell him to watch the episode so he can get his personalized happy birthday wish from us. To all of our Patreons, thank you so much for the support. It keeps the channel going. Yeah, and I'm really glad that we get to read these books and talk about them because, they are fun. And you like the modern stuff is something I normally wouldn't get into, and I'm glad that we're doing it. And on top of that, I hope that we gave everybody some food for thought on the repro debate. Because at the end of the day,
tell us what you
let's play
think
with
about the
our toys.
issues, repros.
Yeah,
Go
let us know
crazy.
in the comments before I call it the chat, because I'm used to Twitch at the moment as well. But yeah, oh, there we go. There's Steve, and he's brought the little guy.
Hey, he's awake now.
This is what the rest of my day looks like. Me and my boy. Hey, boy.
Yeah.
It's bright. I know. It's very bright.
Hey, Ellie.
Cool, guys. I'm gonna
Cool.
sign off before my power destroys my laptop. Cheers,
Yeah.
and yo, Joburg.
Yo, Joburg.
Cool, and I'm good. Must I do the outro? That one, the 12-second one.
Bye.
I'll do the bye. Well.